It's on now.
Now it's on.
Huh? Well, now, that's where it's supposed to be. Huh? It says mute.
Done.
There you go.
Nameplate on. The nameplate is
So if you push that mutes it, and now that unmutes it.
All right, let's get moving. The meeting of the Caddo Parish Commission for December 4, 2023 at 3:30 is now called to order. Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gage Watts.
Present.
Commissioner Blake.
Here.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Present.
All right, you have 10 of 12 committee members, commissioners present, and that does constitute a quorum.
Okay. Well, we had a, what is that, alcohol and beverage control committee meeting earlier where we've had our invocation and our pledge of allegiance, so we'll forego that to get on through the meeting. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir. That brings us to agenda additions. I'm sorry, sir. I was trying to answer a question. Were you accepting the invocation and pledge of allegiance from earlier
Right.
today? And then the next item is agenda additions, where there is one item today, and that is to advance the recommendations of the committee meeting that you just referenced. That's the Alcoholic Beverage Committee meeting. So if y'all could expand the agenda to include those recommendations, that would allow you to consider them on Thursday.
Okay, the floor is open for a public hearing on that. Anyone that want to come and speak for or against the agenda addition can do so at this point.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt this meeting, but we cannot hear what y'all are saying.
Okay, I noticed that you all were up front earlier, but that's good. We should be able to hear back in the back. Can you hear us now? Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, as I said, the public hearing is now open. The floor is open for any comments for or against the agenda addition. I see none. The public hearing is now closed. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, so at this point, it would be appropriate if there's a motion to expand the agenda. And a second.
Okay, there's a
Who
motion.
was the? Hopkins and Young. Sorry.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Hopkins and a second by Commissioner Young. Commissioner Hopkins.
Just to expand the agenda and add to, add to new business so we can move it to Thursday.
Okay, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion does pass with 10 in support, none in opposition. And that will be added to your new business section as 11.7. That brings us now to citizens' comments, where citizens are asked to fill out a comment card in the front lobby and submit those into the basket to my left here. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes each. And we have received a few requests for comment that have already been submitted to the president, and I just received an additional one, so I'll submit that now.
Okay. All right. Our first committee citizens comment is coming from Mr. Tim Euler.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you. Tim Mueller, 7-11-15. I brought my friend MJ. I'm going to try to read this directly so that I don't get too emotional, but today I stand before you to honor my brother in Christ, my fellow conservative friend, advisor, but most importantly, my friend, Mario Chavez. Mario this month will conclude 8 years of service for Caddo Parish in the city of Shreveport as an elected official. Mario has served our commission with integrity and passion. Mario believes in our parish and our city. Mario served the last 18 years with the best interests of the people at the forefront of his heart and mind. When you serve the way Mario has, you gain many friends, but you also gain some people that become jealous of you, Mario. You realize people will not always agree with you, but that's fine because that's the American way. You never become okay with that because you truly believe that you feel what should be accomplished must be beneficial for all. I met Mario 7 years ago. Met him as an introduction from our friend C.L. Bryant, who we just had the honor of attending his wedding. C.L. told me in that meeting that I was meeting a rising star in Caddo and Shreveport, and I believed that I had. A couple months later, I had some problems with the city collecting my garbage. I'm not in Mario's district, but the only phone number I had was Mario. It was a city issue. I called Mario. He connected me with my now friend John Nicholson. John took care of it. A couple years later, I had an issue with the zoning issue, again a city issue, which also happened to be, though, in Mario's district. Mario didn't just take my word for it and come to my defense because we were friends. He went door to door and knocked on people's door and said, what do you want for the community? That, to me, demonstrated Mario integrity. And it wasn't the fact you were rising up for a friend. It was the fact you 100% wanted what was best for your community. You exhibit what elected officials should. And I appreciate that. My story with Mario is not much different than many. Mario's the type of person that if you both are without a shirt, Mario's going to find a shirt for you before he finds a shirt for himself. With all due respect to anybody sitting around the horseshoe, I think this man right here is the most caring, giving elected official in Caddo and Shreveport. Stories, these are stories that are private and personal. I have a young man standing right here that's a witness of that. Mario, you're the real deal, brother. And I appreciate you. When Mario decided, I may need some more time if I can get it, please. And I promise I won't go too long. I got places to be too. When Mario decided to run for mayor, it was a no-brainer for me. It had nothing to do with his political ideas, even though I agree with him pretty much 100%. It had to do with his heart. I knew why he was running, the purpose for why he was running.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by unanimous vote. How many minutes? How many minutes you would need? 2 minutes.
I'll wrap it up quickly, I promise. Is Mario perfect? All you have to do is ask Megan, and she'll tell you Mario is not perfect. But Mario, you're a Caddo Shreveport hero. When the calendar turns to 2024, I believe Caddo and Shreveport will be losing one of the most brilliant, innovative, and conservative minds this parish and city has seen in decades. Mario can be trusted. Mario can be counted on. Mario embodies service before self. Mario, my friend, I've learned so much from you. If I had the opportunity to create a special resolution from Caddo Parish, I'd do it. And you know I'd do it. It was the first thing on my list to do if I would have been elected, was to honor you. Thank you for never turning your back on Caddo and on Shreveport. Thank you for never turning your back on me. Thank you for allowing God to guide your heart, thoughts, motives, and decisions. You are an elected official. You have been an elected official that everybody should look up to. And everybody should say, when I get elected, I want to be like Mario Chavez. Thank you for giving up your time. I know of your family, your resources, and your energy to save and to serve our parish. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loveth at all time, and a brother is born for adversity. Thank you, Mario, for being my friend and my brother. I love you.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes, sir.
you're on the board, so I figured you might have a comment, not toward that, because you can't respond to that, but you may have had a comment. I'm just giving you that opportunity. You good? Okay. All right, that takes us then to our next citizen comment. I'm trying to read this email that I got to try to place them in order. Okay, Ms. Natalie Schaeferman, Adele. fine, as long as we can hear you.
It's okay.
Yeah. Just state your name for the records, please.
My name is Adele Schaeferman, and I live in zip code 71106. As we've seen in the recent elections, it's impossible to fully audit our elections. What is called an audit is merely a head count of the number of people who voted. If the head count matches the number on the voting machines, our elections are claimed to be audited and everything is okay. But the votes themselves are in no way audited except on the absentee ballots. Only absentee ballots, or about 17% of the total amount in the disputed sheriff's race, could be accounted. All other votes went into cyberspace to be counted outside of our state on software. These votes are unavailable for a recount, and therefore all citizens who voted on machines are disenfranchised for the recount. Let that sink in. The majority of Caddo voters are disenfranchised by our computer voting system. The solution is hand-marked paper ballots. The states of Missouri and Louisiana have developed a secure, trustworthy, and fast process. The template is available online. The system is easily understood by voters, candidates, and election officials. No technology required. It's 100% auditable. Many voting procedures already in place can be applied to the paper ballot hand-counted system. There is no need to certify the machines before and after the elections. There will be no need to haul and store the heavy machines. There will be no need for technical support to be on hand the day of elections. There will be no need for security upgrades, and there will be no need to purchase a new fleet of computer voting machines in 15 to 20 years. Here are additional monetary advantages. Local citizens, not an out-of-state software company, will be paid to do the counting. Additionally, the cost of paper pens, privacy screens, and the salaries will be still far, far less than the purchase of new computer voting machines. So, you as Caddo Parish Commissioners have the opportunity to steer us towards an election system that everyone in this room can understand and trust. Given the benefits to Caddo Parish, it is worth investigating. We, the people of Northwest Louisiana, are eager to exchange ideas with you and answer your questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Schaeferman. The next citizen up will be Ms. Bonnie Farr.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Farr, state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Bonnie Farr. I live in Shreveport. I am speaking on the paper ballots and the chain of custody. You no doubt have questions about the paper ballot system. As a commissioner in charge of almost 40 years, I feel like that I have some knowledge of what goes on at the precinct. The commissioner in charge is responsible for what goes on in their precinct from the time they get there at 5 or whatever time, 30 minutes before opening, to the time they deliver the results to the clerk in downtown. Right now, we don't do that. They took that and someone else, it comes to the polls and picks it up and delivers it. After marking the ballot, the voter places his ballot into a closed box that cannot be opened except with a scanner. Every hour of the day, On Election Day, starting with 1 hour after voting begins, the ballot box is taken from the voting area to a secure counting room. Once removed from the box, the ballots are counted and totaled on tabulator sheets. At the close of the voting hours, the ballots, tabulator sheets, and totals are returned to the box and sealed inside. The commissioner in charge then takes the box to the clerk of court's office. Recently, someone, like I said, someone comes and gets it from the clerk at the precinct, which to me, it's convenient for we, the commissioner in charge. We don't have to take it downtown, but we don't know what happens to it once we release it at the polls. Someone else has it, and we don't know where they go or who sees it. But with paper ballots, it's a direct shot from the commissioner to the clerk's office. You may also have questions about the workers and the counters in the paper ballots. A minimum of 4 counters is required, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Other parties also may be represented as observers. The commissioner in charge shall also watch the counting. Cameras may be an extra layer of security. No person in the counting room is allowed to leave the room or to have a cell phone. No doubt we have to have meals and go to the bathroom, and that would be worked out. The parties of the candidates shall provide the counters. It is in their interest to do so. For further security, the ballots will be serialized, just like the numbers on our paper money. A limited number batch of ballots will be delivered to each precinct. Unused ballots will be returned to the clerk's office along with the marked ballots. Again, a camera may be focused on the ballot box, capturing photos of who is voting. The commissioner in charge will receive the registration book and other paperwork as they already do. There's no need to change this process. Due to limited time, I cannot answer any more questions, but we invite you and we're asking you to set up a time when we, the people of Northwest Louisiana, can demonstrate this paper ballot box and how it operates for you personally in a group. Okay. So would you please give us that opportunity to teach you about the paper ballots and the counting? Thank you.
Thank you. The next citizen up is Miss Susan Barnfather. Father. I'm sorry, I'm murdering your name, but welcome. Give me your name for the record. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Susan Bairnsfather. I live in Shreveport, Louisiana. The evidence for the paper ballot votes checked in the sheriff's race demonstrated 2 voters voted twice, 4 voters voted and then died before Election Day. 51 voters had unsigned ballot flaps, and those ballots were accepted in the vote count while 40 plus were rejected appropriately as required by law. The Board of Election Supervisors are required to approve these decisions. They do this process as required by law. They were not present to oversee the process, nor do it themselves. All issues in that courtroom were proven to be due to officials not being diligent with following Louisiana law dictates. In the court hearing on Thursday, officials testified under oath these misstatements. We do electronic hand counts. I'm sorry, people, there is no such thing as electronic hand count. Hand count means, by the very word, counting by hand. There is no electronic process in hand counting. So, this official knows better than this, and this official blatantly interjected this misstatement in this court hearing. Another misstatement. The board counts the paper ballots. I witnessed the counting of the paper ballots after the city marshal race. Here's what I observed. The board, meaning the Board of Election Supervisors, say they count the paper ballots. The board does not count the paper ballots. This is required by Louisiana law that they do. The board simply sits while the clerk of court staff and the registrar of voters staff feed paper ballots through a scanner. The board only addresses a ballot when a scanner kicks the ballot out that it cannot read. When I witnessed the paper ballot counting process, out of over 5,000 paper ballots in that city marshal race, they were run through 2 scanners, so half of each in a scanner. Only 12 ballots were adjudicated by this board of 5 people in 4 hours' time. The scanner reads those ballots, and then the voting system software counts the ballots. The Board of Election Supervisors do not count the paper ballots. So one might think if the board members were supposed to be counting our ballots, then certainly one of those board members is running the computer or the software to do so. Absolutely not. We as taxpayers hire a contractor, an IT person, who comes from Baton Rouge, sets up the scanners, sets
Motion
up the
to
computers.
extend 2 minutes.
I would like to request
There's
more
been
time,
motion to-
please.
Hold on a second, Ms. Bainfather, if you would.
2 minutes.
Been motion and second to extend 2 minutes by acclamation.
Try my best, sir.
I have a question.
Okay.
They've been speaking on the same subject, and I need the total time on this subject.
Okay.
3, 6, 9.
9 minutes.
9 minutes, I think.
Okay.
No, it's moving.
Continue.
We had extended 2 minutes, so it's 11 minutes.
Mr. Clerk, what is the total?
They extended for Mr. Euler, not for them.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that 9 minutes is correct. From
We
what
have,
we have.
what is 15?
15.
Okay. All right, that's been extended 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Unanimous vote. Ms. Bainfather, would you
Thank you.
continue?
Thank you, Commissioners. So we taxpayers are hiring an IT person from Baton Rouge to set up the scanners, set up the laptop, set up the desktop that he had, and to run the software to count the ballots. Our Board of Election Supervisors do not count those ballots as required by Louisiana law. So our board is so technically challenged that they would not even know if a mistake was made unless they overheard the technician say, oops, or uh-oh. So another misstatement. We trust the system. The screenshot that I sent to you commissioners the last time I spoke, after the last time I spoke, showed a 592% turnout rate in one precinct. That is impossible. That's an impossible number. So how did that happen? 100% turnout rate means that everybody in that precinct voted, right? That is a glaring error. I would never be allowed, as a programmer, I am a computer programmer. If I produced software coding that produced that result, I'd be fired. Another example, our voting system during the 2023 sheriff's race, after rescanning the paper ballots, produced 6 additional votes. That race, it has a 1-vote advantage. Those 6 votes mattered. Now they came out 3 and 3 even, but how did that happen? We trust the system is what we're hearing from our officials. So what that means that 6 voters' votes were disenfranchised in the first run-through. I submit to you that none of the above should be acceptable to you. It is not acceptable to me. I want my vote to count when I go vote, and I'm sure you do too.
Okay, thank you.
Louisiana law says that our election should be certified before the election. It proves to me they were not.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that takes us now to Ms. Brenda O'Brock.
So that was 6 minutes. Yeah, I know that.
How many minutes do we have remaining? 4?
So that would be, there's 12 minutes so far, so, oh, wait, no, I'm sorry.
11?
No, she took 3 minutes extra.
3 minutes.
This won't take me
Oh,
long.
that's okay. Ms. O'Brock?
It's good to
Nice
be
to
here,
see
Brenda
you.
O'Brock, and I have filled out the form. I've been at the same address for almost 3 decades, so you have all the information. It may sound a little redundant what I have to say, but I think it's worth repeating.
I want to thank John Paul Young for being at the recount the other day. And I also want to thank him for submitting a resolution earlier. I think it was to our Secretary of State, Kyle Ardwan, to try to clean up the voter records. And the people who are paying attention really know the serious issue that this is. And I think it's very interesting and a little bit funny that before the recount the other day, and Susan mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it again. John Nicholson requested a hand count. He should have gotten that, but he didn't. They ran the absentee ballots through the scanners. I watched it in a room full of attorneys, SOS employees, the clerk of court's office was there, and citizens. Those scanners proved wrong. Y'all, the machines are not accurate. The machines are not accurate. They came up with 6 additional votes, 3 for Nicholson and 3 for Whitehorn. Where did those come from? That's proof right there in a room full of people. This proved that the machines don't work. Yes, they're wonderful. I have a Tesla. I'm not against technology, okay?
Maybe that's the problem.
So, you know, it's not about that. This is about truth and accuracy and our votes that should count the way we cast them.
Oh, you finished? Oh, thank you. All right, that should be the last.
I've received no more requests for public comment today.
Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Okay, that brings us now to visitors. We have no scheduled visitors today, so we can move forward to reports, where we do have the administrator report. You should have on your agenda a copy of the administrator report, as well as a copy, electronic copy, and a print copy of the income statement for this month.
Okay, Madam Administrator?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just want to give you an update on the various RFPs that we've been working on. We should have the opioid RFP issued by December 14th. Hoping to have the housing RFP issued by December 21st, and the cameras January 2024. Just to remind,
Madam Administrator, what is the housing RFP?
we have some additional, some remaining dollars on the emergency rental assistance that could go towards housing, and so we're proposing to have an RFP to use those funds.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, the budget adoption tomorrow at December 5th at 3:30. Also on December 11th, Monday at 11 o'clock, the LSU Health Center will be having their grand opening for the new medical education building that the commission helped to provide some funding for. Wednesday will be our Toys for Tots at 8:30 at Moffett Audi on Bert Coons. The LSU Ag Center's annual luncheon that they usually have in December, that they invite all of the commissioners, they're having to have that in January, on January 9th instead of December, because of renovations that we're performing at the facility. And you all should be getting an invitation for that, but it'd be Tuesday, January 9th. We will have an orientation for new commissioners on January 8th after the swearing in. You should have the November 2023 financials at your stations. Please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. The numbers for juvenile detention, we have 24 in detention. 10 of those are OJJ, 17 or 17-year-olds. We do have 13, there are 13, they're not ours, but 13 at the Caddo Correctional Center, and we have 604 on probation. Right now, I'd like to, we've had some more questions regarding the Johnny Grape Jones. It did close November 30th, so I'm gonna let Mr. Randall come up and give us just an update on where we stand now that that facility has closed.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Good afternoon, Commissioners. There had been some concerns about the closing of the Johnny Grape Jones Youth Shelter and its impact, I guess, principally on what we do in juvenile services. As I stated the last meeting when we discussed this, the Johnny Grape Jones Center is principally used by DCFS and OJJ but it houses status offenses. That's runaways, that's ungovernable, that's truancy violations, things of that nature. Typically, even as our last discussion of it, there were only 2 children in there from Caddo Parish. Johnny Gray Jones was one of only 2 of its type facilities in the entire state. The other one was located in Alexandria. Unfortunately, with its closing, what it has done, as you see perhaps from some of the numbers that you've gotten, is it is operated in many instances for children that have been housed in our juvenile detention center as sort of a transitional place for those who are in OJJ custody before they are moved to other facilities throughout the state. In the absence of that as a tool in the hands perhaps of the judges, it does create some backlog because, frankly, the lack of OJJ facilities. There was some discussion about perhaps some stopgap funding from the state to keep the facility open throughout the balance of the year. That obviously did not happen because it closed on November 30th. In order to run the facility, though, that cost would be upwards of $2 million, and so if there is some legislative action or appetite upon the state to manage that, then perhaps it may reopen, but I couldn't really speak to the certainty of that occurring. Commissioner Jackson, I think, asked specifically about the Brandon Transitional Home for Boys and its perhaps use as a substitute or utility. The important thing to understand about the Brandon home is it has a contract with OJJ, the Office of Juvenile Justice, and it houses young men who have been adjudicated. So they have already come out of the juvenile detention center and are in OJJ custody and moving otherwise. So I think that the point that I'm trying to stress to the commission is that when you consider the closing of OJJ, it is not having the effect of children that would otherwise be incarcerated in the juvenile detention center not having a place to go. The children that are in Johnny Gray Jones or who were using Johnny Gray Jones were not children that would otherwise be in the juvenile detention center. And so while it does, again, stress situations that are fins, truancy, ungovernable, things of that nature, it does not impact those children who would otherwise be housed in the facility that we manage. But in that, again, as I said previously, we are working, with the judges and law enforcement. We meet every month at our law enforcement meeting, which consists of various law enforcement agencies and agencies that come together with respect to all matters juvenile to try to develop solutions to deal with children who are in those statuses that I just named previously, in addition to what we already do to collaborate in our efforts to prevent, combat, and otherwise address juvenile crime. So, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have one before I address Commissioner Jackson. Am I understanding you to say that by closing this facility there, we would be able to relocate those, anyone that is using that facility right now or needs or the need to use the facility, you have another place that you can place them, like the Brandon home. That's just, they provide the same type of services?
No, that's not what I'm saying. It is actually closed. Those children were transitioned that were in there, were transitioned to, I guess, other places in the state. Again, there were only 2 in there from Caddo Parish, so I'm not really sure as to the other residences or other residents that were there and where they were placed. They weren't our children. They weren't in our purview. I'm not privy to their exact location and information. The Brandon house is used for children who have been adjudicated and placed in OJJ custody. It's a transitional home. It's not the same as the children that would be housed in the juvenile detention center. In other words, if there was a delinquency, they were arrested, they wouldn't be brought to a Brandon home. They wouldn't be brought necessarily to Johnny Gray Jones. They committed an offense, that would result in them being placed in the juvenile detention center. Then that's a matter that we would handle.
Okay, from your perspective, and my second follow-up question is, if those persons who were at that location were relocated throughout the state at other facilities, do you see the need for it? Do you see the need for this facility, another facility similar to that? Because this one is closed down, so if there's a need for it, then they're going to have to send them to other locations in the state, I would assume, because you don't have a facility.
Yes, I understand, Commissioner. I wouldn't say that there's no need for it. I mean, it serves an important purpose, but it serves an important purpose in the sense of dealing with children, again, runaway, family in need of services, curfew violations, things of that nature where children are, it's not a criminal offense of a nature that would make them be put in the juvenile detention center, but there is a family that's in need of help with the situation, and perhaps sometimes if there's not a family member available to address that in a family need of services situation, places like Johnny Gray Jones help that. If you have a runaway that you picked up and you don't have a place for them, well, you don't incarcerate them. Johnny Gray Jones helps in that regard. So I wouldn't say that it doesn't have use. It's not helpful. But I would say that in other larger jurisdictions across the state have had to develop other means of addressing housing for those children who are caught in those situations that does not involve incarcerating.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Director Randall. Appreciate you coming, and thank you for the update. So I guess my question is, as I follow it, my concern is, where would the fins, the ungovernable, where are they going to go now? Because as I understand it, those families or those children still fall to our care. Is that correct, or do they just fall to SPD or whomever picked them up? So my understanding was they would be picked up, or if they're located or something, they're brought to juvenile. So, and then juvenile then places them in, or the judge or staff or somebody would place them at Johnny Gray Jones. Is that correct? They would.
I understand what you just said. In the instance of, let's say, a runaway or
Right.
something of that nature.
Right.
Well, typically they're not brought to the detention center.
Okay.
No, we don't intervene in that.
Okay.
They may be picked up by law enforcement, who would take them directly there.
To Johnny
Or if
Gray
it's-
Jones.
Yes, sir. Or
Okay.
if it's a DCFS matter, then what they're doing is trying to locate a family or a temporary placement of foster families and others who have committed to that, to place children otherwise, but not the detention center. The detention center is not a solution to that.
No. I'm saying, but they would never. So they would go immediately from SPD to Johnny Gray Jones. I thought they came to juvenile, and then juvenile moved them to Johnny Gray Jones.
No, we do not house fins or runaways in the detention center.
Okay.
We do not.
So.
And they're not brought there while we're waiting to put there. If I'm picking up the question,
I guess so. So I guess my concern is, judges have said, well, I put individuals who are fins, who are ungovernable. I had the ability to put them there when I had Johnny Gray Jones.
Sure.
Where would they put people now? Because what I don't want, I guess what I want to prevent is, I kind of want to prevent the appearance of us saying, well, juvenile services, we're good. Juvenile judges, y'all just figure it out. I think we all got to be in it together.
Yes, sir. Well, no, we're certainly, it's not that.
Okay.
I think what I was simply trying to articulate is perhaps the perception that the closing of that facility was resulting in children who were otherwise committing criminal acts being released because there wasn't there.
Right.
So insofar as juvenile services, which manages the juvenile detention center, the closing of that does not present that problem for us. But to your point, it's not an issue of whether of us being good in juvenile services and the judges having a problem, which is why we're in communication on the issue, which is why we try to utilize the LEO meeting with the law enforcement to find out if it's okay, because in other jurisdictions, as we've stated, so then there's law enforcement would redouble their efforts with respect to locating a family that could take a child if it's a family in need of service, or it's an ungovernable situation, or DCFS has families that would take these things.
Right.
It's a matter of buttressing those services to better put our arms around it. So we're trying to help the judges in that regard.
So where would they, as of today, or as of Friday or Thursday or whatever day the 30th was, where would they put a fins or an ungovernable or a runaway? Where would a judge be able to put them if this was to come up today or tomorrow or next week? Where would they put them?
Well, there's not going to be one answer to that question, to be honest with you, so it would be across the spectrum of things. As I said, so if a family placement or a foster placement or some other temporary housing that wise was not available, there are times where even the shelter is used for children.
With shelter, Johnny
Rescue
Great
mission, I'm sorry. Like
Rescue mission,
Yes,
okay.
Salvation Army.
Okay.
Those kind of things are utilized in those instances as well. But there is no, I can't give you a one answer because there is no one answer.
Gotcha.
And I think that is sort of the gap in space, but that's what happens in other jurisdictions, quite frankly.
Mhm.
Law enforcement comes into those spaces where there's an ungovernable
Mhm.
child or family legal services, and there's maybe something going on in the home, and there is perhaps a more intensive intervention
Mhm.
that does not necessarily remove the child from the home, but maintains some sort of maintenance or surveillance that allows that situation to be abated without the need of incarcerating the
Mhm.
child, or well, removing a child from home and sending them to a shelter,
All
not,
right. Well,
not incarceration.
I hate to make life harder for you, usually what we say before we do, right? But I guess I would like to see, because it seems like the Johnny Gray Jones was something that we could use to kind of help monitor the child or,
Yes.
or put them in a safe place. I
Yes.
don't know. Salvation Army I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that model. I'm not sure what the rescue mission model is. That's more like hey, come here for a
Those
little
are
while.
respite models.
Okay.
They're less. I mean,
Structured sound like.
correct. They're not structured in the same
So
way
if we-
that Johnny Gray Jones would be. So you mentioned again the Brandon House, but they'd have to essentially repurpose the way in which
Right,
they are
right.
even structured
Right.
to service the need or the gap in the system that's been created by the closure of Johnny Gray Jones.
Okay. Well, could I guess, and again, I'm going to put something on your plate here. Could we look at something here in Caddo where we could put children? I just would like to see a structured model similar to what the Johnny Gray Jones, I don't know if Rutherford House has.
Sure.
What about Rutherford House? Is that an option?
Not
an option.
for that, but I
Okay.
mean, that's why I mentioned the cost at the beginning. So
Gotcha.
that,
Okay.
so we'd have
This
that
is all a
in
cost
place.
issue.
Certainly it's cost
driven by
prohibitive,
cost.
yes, it is.
Well, let's get together and just see what we can probably put out. I'm not sure that there's going to be a quick fix to it, but if we
Yes.
can start talking about, and whomever will be juvenile service chair next year, y'all can kind of just take it and keep going with it. But I would like to see a conversation start with, something, because I'm thinking about families, I'm thinking about children, I'm thinking about the community at large. It seems like there's no place right now to really put them, and you can almost make a situation worse by putting them, just saying, hey, go to the rescue mission. You can almost make it worse, because when they leave there, then where do they go? So if we could start
Commissioner, I
talking
hope
about
you
that.
keep us in mind at the
I will.
legislature. You
I
help us
definitely
out.
will. I definitely will. I promise you that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Render, how many kids are in juvenile detention right now?
Right now, 25.
25 so we have somebody in the sick room.
The overflow bonds, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And are there more of those from OJJ than before because
10.
of?
There are currently 10 in.
So that's more than it used to be, because we used to.
That no,
9 is the highest I remember so far.
yes, sir. Particularly lately, there's been sort of a bottleneck again because of the lack of facilities around
Got
the
it.
state.
Okay. And then, do you remember the conversation that we had about about writing down a protocol for when a law enforcement officer brings a kid to juvenile, but there's no room, and maybe they can't get an answer from anybody at the court late at night or whatever? Do you remember the committee meeting when we talked about that?
Yes, I
Is
do.
that protocol written down already?
Yes, I can provide that to you if you're asking. Yeah.
Okay.
Following that meeting, and again in the Leo meetings that I've referenced, we've sort of distilled down a manner
Great.
of approaching that to try to
Great.
abate that.
Well, please do send me a copy. I'd like to read it, but also it needs to be available to everybody else, because now we're at 25 for 24 beds.
When you say everyone else, I'm sorry.
Any law enforcement officer who
I
wants to
understand.
bring someone
Okay.
to juvenile, or
You meant commission.
anyone else.
You meant commission. Were you saying commissioners when you said everybody else?
Well,
Provide it to everybody.
Other commissioners would be happy to see it too, I'm sure, but the people who are going to have to follow that protocol need to know about
yes,
it
sir.
too.
With respect to law enforcement, I mean, us meeting with the heads of SPD, sheriffs, and otherwise, I mean, they're aware of how we manage that space, so they would be responsible for, communicating that to their rank and file. But whatever you're asking me,
We
to do
also
with
talked
respect to
about posting
communicating.
it on the building after hours.
Oh, I
something
see
like
what you're
that.
saying. Well,
So that-
that we did not necessarily make a part of the protocol, but if that's what you're recommending, I mean, we certainly can
If
go back
we're
to
often
that.
going to be full, people are going to need to know right away what to do when we're full.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. That's all, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Randall.
Randall, I might have missed this by stepping out, but the facility is being closed because it's underutilized, or it's just or cost prohibitive in terms of expenses?
No, it wasn't because it was being underutilized, because actually it had capacity for 32, but they kept the census around 18, but that was more of a staffing issue than there certainly was a greater need for it. It was a funding issue. Someone at the state made that decision, and that's why the funding was cut.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Randall, you just made a comment before, just in case any elected Louisiana House of Representative elected reps might be listening currently. Yes, can you please point out to the DOJ that, or to the legislature, that 40% of our capacity is typically taken up by DOJ detainees.
By OJJ.
Pardon me, Office of Juvenile Justice. Thank you, OJJ. Thank you. So maybe we can do. We talk about needing additional facilities, but if we could just get those young people that do not belong with us moved out, then that would open up 40% of our capacity. So just in case someone, a state rep elect happens to be listening,
Loud and clear.
for future reference. And then secondly,
I'm in the super minority.
Dr. Randall, I wanted to thank you for your tutorial that you provided to me the other night when we were at the dinner for the families.
Yes,
I appreciate all your education and input just to kind of dial me up to speed on some issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being there. That was
Yes,
very
sir.
important.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Commissioner Atkins, seems like we ought to be able to apply that to CCC also,
Yeah.
in terms of capacity. Relieving CCC of state and federal prisoners. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I just have one last question. Just one last question. Have we looked at that vacant building next to CCC that the sheriff owns? Have we had any, or have y'all ever taken a look at that, or what about the one that there's one that the sheriff owns, and then there's one right next to it that the state actually owns, and it's not used for anything? Had y'all, I see Erica giving a look over here.
I'm not sure, anytime we look at another space,
Mhm.
or
It's
it
cost.
comes with a cost, and so that's been our biggest issue, is the fact of how do you operate any additional space that you may obtain, or have cost to renovate it.
Okay. Have y'all gone through that one yet, though?
I'm not sure, I have to look to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure which.
It's I think one was like the work release, not the mental health. One was like work release. It has the barbed wire around it at the top. And then the other one that sits next to it is more freestanding. I think it was called regional training or reentry something. But one was work release specific. I'm told that it's empty. And then the other one was like the regional reentry something. But they're sitting right there next to each other, side by side. If y'all could, I don't know if y'all taken a look at it, but if you could take a look at it and maybe see.
Are you asking to look at it in terms of us operating another facility?
For the Johnny Gray Jones issue, I agree about the moving the DOC and OJJ folks out, but that's a more structural policy question there. But for the Johnny Gray Jones situation, because I just think that,
I think right now, Johnny Gray Jones is still a situation of the funding.
the funding.
The location is not a problem, it's the fact that it is
Right.
gonna take $2 million a year to operate it, and the state is not prepared to take on those costs right now. Nor
See, I
is
thought Bossier was paying for it, though.
Bossier paid
Parish.
a portion of some.
A portion,
Okay.
it was a combination, but it
Okay.
wasn't Bossier Parish that singularly that made the decision to
Okay.
close it. So,
Okay. But it sounds like you're talking like maybe no more than 5 kids at a time, at a given time, 5 or 6 kids, maybe less at a time, run away ungovernable. So you could theoretically,
where'd you get?
For Johnny Gray
where'd you get that
Jones.
number? Where'd you
But we'll,
you said that you said there was very minimal numbers that would be placed at Johnny Gray Jones.
What I said was there.
from our end.
From our
office.
end.
Oh, I see what
Right,
you're
right.
saying.
And so I'm
Yes.
talking about Caddo. I'm talking about solving the issue in Caddo specifically, not
I see.
just Caddo. And so it seems like it's a very small number of folks or kids that we may be encountering, right?
Well, we can continue to have dialogue to see what alternatives we can look at
Yeah.
and make recommendations, if any, to the commission.
Because here's what I'm saying. I would just say this and wrap it up, Mr. President. I think it could be something as simple as us identify a piece of property that, you know, Caddo Parish just, you know, rehabs or something, and we use that sort of like a step down, because that's what it sounds like Johnny Gray Jones was. It was a step down. It was not juvenile detention, and it wasn't meant to be juvenile detention. So some type of step down type facility that could hold some folks for a couple of days or an hours or so.
I think ultimately, it's
But money is
question of
always,
funds.
yeah, it's always there.
Yes, because
So
we
we'll
have
let
to remember that the millage did
administration,
not.
you gonna
Well,
look
just,
into
sir,
that?
Yes, sir, we have it down and we'll continue our dialogue, just, you know, remember the millage did not pass.
Hold on,
So we don't-
because I feel like I'm being rushed.
I'm not-
Everybody up here, when you get on in this queue, everybody has 7 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is. I shouldn't feel like I'm being rushed.
Well, you're not being rushed.
Okay,
You're
all
not-
right.
you're
Because
not
I see
being rushed.
I see people go on and on and on, and so I need to make sure we got an issue here, where we do not have a place to put children right now. Okay?
And I understand
so
that.
I don't know what the issue is, but the clock
Well,
and
it's
stuff
not, it's just that the administration, she kept saying that she was gonna look into facilities. Whenever you asked about the places at CCC, there are 2 places over at CCC. And
We have that.
the state,
Right.
okay.
But I'm trying to make sure that I'm talking with the director right now, and I shouldn't feel like I'm being rushed.
Well, you're not being rushed,
Okay,
Mr.
all right.
Jackson. I think we give you adequate time
Okay.
to express
So
yourself
I
on many issues.
I would like to finish my
Okay, that'll be
point.
fine.
My point is, there could be some space in Caddo Parish that I know all of it requires funding. Everything requires funding. Nothing is free, but there could be some space that we could repurpose to go and look at this sort of step-down facility. Brentwood may have an unused wing somewhere that we could go talk to them. We know it's gonna cost money, so we can't just say, it's money, it's money, it's money, all right? We know it's gonna cost something, and so at some point, we may have to reach into our coffers to say, this is a problem for Caddo Parish, here's how we're going to solve it. And that is what I'm asking administration and juvenile to give some serious thought to, even as we go into this holiday season, even as we go into this transition period, because regardless of whether I'm here or not, whomever is here, this situation is still gonna be here, and we need to be trying to find a solution for it. That's what I'm asking us to do.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll work
Yes.
toward that end.
Yes, sir, we'll definitely look at that, and we understand that it takes money, and just again, the millage did not pass, so we don't have a lot of room to go in the budget and find it. That's why we asked the citizens for additional dollars, they did not support that, and so we have to be mindful of that when we're considering all these options that we do have on the
Well, we
table.
can't get blood from a turnip, so that's what we're trying to do right now. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple questions. How many children do we send over the Johnny Gray Jones building facility? Roughly.
You mean in a given-
in a given year?
Honestly, don't have that. I don't want, I can come back and give you that number.
All right. I mean, but is it a large number, small number?
I mean, it's a significant number. I mean, not in the hundreds as if like those that come through detention centers. So I mean, dozens. Let's say that.
Okay.
Let's say that.
So could you find an agency or organization in Caddo Parish that could basically do the same thing?
Have a contract with OJJ relative to, or DCFS relative to Finn's matters and truancy
Yes.
runaway?
Yes.
Perhaps.
I mean, if somebody locally in Caddo Parish wanted to go out and make sure that they can capture that child, I mean, would that be something?
And they
that
were funded outside of what, where you have to work with, you mean, funded by the state?
funded by
somewhere else?
whoever can fund them, right? Would that be something that you could actually look into and do? That's the only way that you're gonna change it, because Bo just said they shut down.
Sure.
And so that option is gone right now. There's nothing we can do on Caddo Parish side to change what they did in Bossier. So we have to look within our parish to see what we can actually do in order to see where those children may go. Or say to OJJ on the ones that we sit there holding, we can't hold them like that. Because,
That last statement, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
so the 10 that we got there now,
Yes.
so they would need to start expediting them out in order to bring others in order to keep our capacity under the 25.
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
there's a process already in place.
Right,
for that.
which there is a process for that. So I guess what I'm saying is we either have to look for some agency that's within Caddo Parish that can help us do this.
I understand.
If Bossier's not trying to do anything to keep that facility open or to bring in another facility that would actually do that, we'll have to look within our own parish or either look outside even Caddo, Bossier, somewhere else. And I know the further to go out that you really don't want to do that, but you have to do what you have to do under the circumstances. That's
Yes,
all I
understand.
wanted to. And just give me the number whenever you get a chance.
I'll run that and give that to the entire commission.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Blake.
Thank you so much for bringing this information to us.
Yes, ma'am.
The last time you were here, I stated how important that this program is to not just Caddo Parish, but for the state of Louisiana.
Yes.
The children are coming from all different parishes.
Yes.
I would like to clarify that we are mixing two issues into one. The detention center and Johnny Gardone's were two separate entities serving two different purposes.
Yes.
The millage would not have covered at the time Johnny Gray Jones. And I think that there is some clarification across the board of understanding what these entities are doing for Caddo Parish. So the needs at Johnny Gray Jones are specifically very different. And so moving forward, we do need to get numbers and see what we can do. Where are the children going when they're picked up and placed in the situations for the use of Johnny Gray Jones? I appreciate you bringing this before us, but I think that we need to make sure that when we're talking about this, that there's two separate situations.
Yes, I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Randall, for bringing the information to us today. I don't think the millage comment had anything to do with Johnny Gray Jones. I think it's having the parish in a position to be able to do something more in the event that it did close. And because we did not have the past millage, we're not even in a position right now to seek additional funding. Had the millage passed, we would have been in a different position to be able to do more. So the millage comment wasn't saying that we would have been able to fund Johnny Gray Jones, one, because that wasn't our responsibility, but it would have put the parish in a position where we may have been able to look at other options. So it's two separate issues still. It's not mixing issues up. It's not saying that we would have been able to cover Johnny Gray Jones. We would have been able to have different options had that passed. So I think just to bring clarity to that, and if I'm wrong, Ms. Bryant, because I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's the understanding that I got out of it. It would have put us in a different position. But we're past that point, it didn't pass, so we can't do that. So at the end of the day, we need to figure something out and figure it out quickly, because children are in need, and we say we care about children, but we're not doing anything to show that we do. And it's time to stop playing those games and figure it out. Because while we're sitting up here with all this extra stuff, children are still running away. Children are still suffering as we are sitting here speaking. There's a child right now running away from home. There's a child right now in need. And so this is not a political issue. This is a moral issue. We have been called to make sure that our children have everything that they need. And, some of us believe in different faiths than others, and we need to kind of start falling back on it and making sure that when we look out for children, we look out for all children, not just the ones we like, but all children, okay? So that's the issue at hand. We need to make sure that something is done to fix this situation quickly, as much as we can possibly do right now within the realm of our possibility. I don't think a miracle is going to happen overnight, but that shouldn't stop us from fighting and trying to help every child.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, again, we've kind of punted this to the administration, and she will get back with us to give us the best options that we have, and I think that's where we should be at this point so that we can make a decision. Okay, with that in mind, Mr. Clerk, thank you very much, and
Okay, that is going to bring us, so this discussion has been under the administration report, and that brings us now to commission remarks with communiques, committee reports, and other items related to the work session agenda.
okay, if you would get on the board for commission remarks. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. I'm going to thank Mr. Euler privately later, but that was very moving. I was about to tear up, so.
Yeah, me too.
I appreciate that. I'd like to call a long-range meeting on Thursday. Mr. Everson, if you can figure out a good time, preferably right before the meeting. We're going to talk on the homestead exemption ordinance. Commissioner Jackson asked me to place on there, as well as I'd like to have the We the People people came down, and they want to discuss with us to do the presentation for the paper ballot. So I'd like to add that on there as well. I'd like to hear what they have to say. That'll be all, President. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is more of a question to administration. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Chavez for adding the We the People to your agenda for Thursday. I'd suggest you make sure they know about that.
I will call Ms.
Okay,
Bonnie right
thank
now.
you. And then, Administrator Bryant, I'm trying to think of what role this body plays with respect to elections, other than general support of a sound process. I mean, does it fit in any of our purview officially?
No, sir. I'll let legal add anything, but other than you all's process that you use to appoint the registrar, you were the body that appointed the registrar. There are also funding that you provide to the registrar office, and you provide office space to every other, the clerk of court and others that are involved in the election process. As far as decision-making in the election process, this body does not have a direct role in decision-making.
But does the registrar, I thought the registrar basically just ensured we had sound books of voters. They're not actually involved with the election process.
Well, they collect the absentee ballots initially. So when absentee ballots first come in, they go to the registrar's office. And then there's a process for counting those ballots. I'm not familiar with that process, but the initial location is to the registrar voter's office.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go back to the Johnny Gray Jones Juvenile Services. Commissioner Blake, thank you for the clarity, because you are right. These are two different issues. That's the point that I was trying to make, particularly when I said to step down. And what we hear is, and I get it, there is a funding issue. We're going to adopt our budget on tomorrow. And if you go to page 141 on our budget, the fund balance at the end of the year is $204 million. So for us to say we can't just use the money, this, if we do not get a hold of this issue, it can become problematic, because even though that those two issues are separate, the kids have to go somewhere, and what it will create is a backlog in the court system, which, because you can't just let them sit on the street. And I think it is woefully inadequate and wrong to just send a kid to a shelter. Our job, as Commissioner Jones said, is to make sure that we're caring for all children. And so I don't want us to just say, because the millage did not pass, it's going to be difficult. I get it. I was supportive of the millage. I did everything that I could to push the millage. But as a citizen of Caddo, when I sit here and I see us having 200 and a budget surplus at the end, we're projecting an end of year budget surplus of $204 million next year. $200 million. He just told us that it might cost $2 million to do the Johnny Gray Jones situation. We're going to have to step up, and I'm talking about for Caddo specific, we're going to have to step up and solve the problem for Caddo. And I'm here until January 8th or whatever, 7th or whatever, and I will continue to press this issue. In fact, Jeff, if you could, let's look at some time next week for a juvenile service committee meeting, because what I asked for back in October or November, I haven't gotten. The email traffic that I got said that we would have a strategy in place by November 3rd. It's November 30th, I'm sorry. It's December 4th, and I do not hear an articulated plan for how we're going to move forward with this situation related to Johnny Gray Jones. I have not heard that. And so for us to say that we're just going to leave it for administration to do, I'm fine with that. But at a certain point, we have to look at our budget. We have to look at the resources that we have, and we, at some point, are going to have to make some financial decisions. I don't know where we would cut back at. I don't know where we would grow at. I don't know. But we've got to look at our budget priorities at some point and say, this is what we have to do at a certain point. The onus is on the 12 of us to figure out something as well. I would love to give the guidance to administration, but I got the email, and I sent the email back in November on what was going to be our strategy. And I was told that we would have a strategy. We do not have a strategy. That is the honest truth. We don't have one. And so if something happened right now, we have no place to put an ungovernable, offends, or truant child right now. We just don't have it. So if we got to repurpose a school, that's just what we may have to do. So wanted to just bring that up. The other thing on the election issue, I've gotten calls, I've gotten emails about that. Some folks are accusing other folks of doing food giveaways or something like that, or vote buying or something. I can tell you that I know that the administration went out of their way to move precinct locations away from, move the food box distribution away from the precinct locations. I don't know about the hand count and the machines and all of that stuff. I'd rather just let that process play out wherever it is. But I can say that I know that the Caddo Parish Commission didn't do anything illegal on election day. It needs to be made clear and in the record. All we did was put a graphic together. But the Food Bank of Northwest Louisiana, they gave us the date based on when they could purchase the food and when they could get the manpower here. All we said was okay, and showed up and passed out the food. So what folks did while they were out and about is on them. But I don't want people running around saying the Caddo Parish Commission was giving food or vote buying. That is incorrect. We didn't even come up with the date. The date was sent to us. And I want to say all the way up until that Thursday, administration was working to try to find locations, different locations for people to go. And so I just know that I've been seeing some email traffic on that, and I've been seeing some social media traffic on it. But it needs to be put out on Front Street that the Caddo Commission didn't do anything. All we did was showed up and be good citizens. So just need to put that out there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Administrator Bryant.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, I just want to communicate, obviously, the administration is committed to working with this commission to fund whatever you all decide is in the best interest of the Caddo Parish citizens. I do want to reflect, though, that yes, you have a projection of a $200 million fund balance, but we know, you know, that the majority of those funds are restricted for specific purposes. It would be wonderful if we can just take that money and use it however we desire, but the citizens have spoken and said how those funds have to be used, and majority of them have specific purpose that are not in regards to juvenile justice. So just wanted to make that point so that we can understand when you are deciding your priorities, what restrictions you have in making those determinations. But again, administration is committed to working with you to fund whatever you deem is a priority needs of this parish. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no one else, I'll give my 2 bits. I was a bit disturbed, and I'm going to lay it out the way I see it, because my Thanksgiving was disrupted by allegations of improprieties during our food drive. These people that we serve are of all races, and mostly those that are in a disadvantaged situation. And on the 18th, we had that food drive, and it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was a success. I know the one in my district appeared to be a success, but unfortunately, there was some folks out there specifically because of the sheriff's race this time, which created a lot of disinformation, where Councilman Nicholson's campaign, and I'm pointing it out because that is what I heard through the media, including the head of the Caddo Republican Party, Mr. Avalon, which I addressed him directly. So it's not anything that I heard there. And some of the conservative media that put out that the food drive was being used as a quid pro quo to buy votes. Now that places a very ugly stain on the commission, because they basically said that the commission is doing this to support Commissioner Whitehorn for sheriff. I think that was dishonest, partisan, and it was something that should not have been said, even to the extent that it was included in the lawsuit, as I understand. Now, people are not going to get out and vote because you're going to give them food. I've heard of paying people to go vote and that kind of thing, but you're giving people food during the holidays, during the Thanksgiving holidays, when people are in need. And this type of insinuation and allegations were out there, and my name was called out specifically, simply because I made a statement in a radio interview, Mr. Settle.
I heard it.
Yeah, you heard it.
I haven't commented on it.
No, I'm just saying that the reason I said, look, I'm addressing this at this point.
You're addressing me.
Point of order.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's get back to this, because I made a statement. I have the floor. I made a statement in an interview that if I had my druthers, I would require would consider asking people who pick up food to be more responsible, civically responsible, and just go register to vote. There was nothing said about who to vote for, in which I'm not stupid enough to do that because of state law. I was a legislator. I made the law. So why would I be stupid enough to be out there saying that, or either addressing that, or either having my workers to address it? People just said, the day is election day, go and vote. And the only reason that came up to ask people to go vote on that day to remind them is because we heard it on Keel. Keel put out this information, and I'm calling them out because that's where it came from, and I heard it, that there's a possibility that that they are giving food out so they can get certain people out to vote. To me, that was a racial insinuation, very much so. Whether it was class, but it was race also, so it's kind of like a dog whistle that's sometimes used. And I didn't think that was proper. Also on Keel, I listened to Ernie Roberts, whom I have a lot of respect for, and he's retired. I never did hear all these allegations during the time that he was in. All of a sudden now our election system is foul. You know, yeah, we have a different person that's in there that's running it, but at the same time, he was kind of an understudy for Ernie Roberts for some time. So that's where he actually learned Mr. Sibley, in which I wasn't here to vote him in per se, because I wasn't on the commission at the time. But because of this race, because of the sheriff race, it appears, and the assessor's race, they talked about it in conjunction with that, because these two people wind up winning by one vote. That was very, well, not odd. If you go in and Google it, you'll find that there's a lot of elections around the country and in Louisiana that has been won by one vote. So it's just where the numbers are. And I can see, if that was impossible, but it's not impossible. And for us to disrupt our whole system and make accusations, unproven accusations, it reflects on us, on our register of voters, our system, as well as our commission. So from that perspective, I'm hoping that we get through this mess, because what you're doing is opening up Pandora's box. Every election from here on could possibly be challenged or taken to court, and we'll never get through any of this just because of this one election season. So put that in your pipe and smoke on it for a while, because it will happen. Commissioner Blake.
Thank you so much, President Burrell. I'm new to the commission, so there's a lot of the way that we handle and do things, the proper route I am learning. The perception of us helping the community and giving away food on the day of the election was a great concern of mine. I contacted the administration. I didn't see it as electioneering. I saw it as a concern that we would be blocking people from having access to vote. So I would like to say that, to me, this is not about race. This is just about how we handle things. Moving forward, I would like to see us to make sure that this does not happen on election day, that we do it the day before, day after, because the perception of what occurred, I think, is concerning to some. And an election that is this close, my concern, and I stated it to administration, that if either person running in this re-election had a dispute, it could be seen that we, for some reason, were doing something inappropriately. And so I spoke that from the beginning and contacted to say I wanted it moved out of my area in District 8, and John Paul worked very hard to get it moved as quick as possible because I didn't want it to be seen that way. I've spoken to many of the commissioners, and they had concerns, and some didn't have concerns. I just think that when we're dealing with an election and we see the importance of perception, that we make sure that we act to not do this again. So,
Well, before I go to Commissioner Chavez, let me kind of address that. The perception is in the eyes of the beholder. So if it was a perception that maybe favored a candidate that you like, chances are it would never come up. But
well, that's,
because-
when I spoke to administration, I told them I didn't want people blocked from having access to it.
Well, the administration.
Or having people seeing that we were, as commissioners, giving away something at polling sites. So I think that it could be seen on either which way, and this is what I'm saying, is an election this close with one vote, either party could have said the same thing. So I just would like, moving forward, to us as a commission, we don't give away anything on election day.
Well, we understand your point, but again, to talk for the administration, they did their due diligence to pull it away from election sites. I don't know of any that were at any election site. Matter of fact, mine had to be moved twice in order to get it away because of the perception.
Right.
So the perception was taken
And thank you
into account.
for the administration and people
And
working
they
hard to
did.
do that.
And even if it were at even if it was at a polling site, the law says as long as it's within 600 feet, it's still lawful. But again, I don't think that was the issue in this race. Matter of fact, I know it wasn't the issue in this race. But again, it was a contentious race. It came out the way it did, and then a lot of disinformation was put out there unfairly, and a lot of it came initially from Kiel, because that's the first place I heard about it before I even went to my food drive, and because my wife picked it up. She said, "Don't you know that this is what they said?" I said, "Well, I never thought about that." But anyway, let me go to Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. Forgive me, I left this item off. Director Bryant, I know I saw some email traffic today on it from Commissioner Atkins that he sent over to the administration. I was also reached out to from a citizen. I don't see any of our animal services here, but on Thursday, can we get a report? Director Clark, it may be better if you come on Thursday to do this. Just want to get some data on the call on August the 31st on the 2 dogs on Kingston Road and Riding Club. That way you can get some information together and send it to us. Called again on September 6th, called again on September 13th. One dog is no longer with us, and the other one was seriously injured. This was a dog that was adopted out. If you have that data now, we can talk about it, but I know there's a lot of citizens that are very upset with this situation, and they're asking for answers.
Yes, I did receive the emails, and we are working on a response to you all. I think we can have that to you.
Thursday would be sufficient if you,
Thursday's
unless
fine.
you're ready now, sir. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
I can do a synopsis on it, but those weren't adopted dogs. Those were return owner dogs. That is a person that lives in Bossier but works in Shreveport. I'm guessing he just kept taking the dogs to work with him, and they kept getting out, and that was the situation. But we did impound them twice. But I can get you more information.
So the dogs were getting out in Shreveport, but he works in Bossier?
No. He lives in Bossier. He works in Shreveport. I think he works out there by Kingston, or something like that. I'm guessing those are the dogs you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll provide you a synopsis of the events that occurred prior to the situation that we're in today.
After the third time, shouldn't we have kept him after the third complaint?
We only impounded them twice.
Oh, so he had one more shot before they got killed.
Yeah, well, the thing is, those weren't aggressive dogs. They were friendly dogs. There are multiple dogs in Shreveport and Caddo Parish that are frequent flyers. We just ensure that they do a fence inspection to make sure that they can't get out. But again, the guy's supposed to have them in Bossier. He just kept taking his work with him out there in Keyville. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, President. That's it.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really wasn't going to say nothing about this election, but when people start talking about locations and things like that, I'm looking at the sites that we had. Eddie Jones, it's on Murphy Street. Midway, it's on Greenwood Road. Greenwood Acres on Greenwood Road. Willow-Shoot was in the MLK area.
Mine's Sunset.
Caddo, I hadn't got to that one yet. Caddo Fire District Number 4, Cockwood Road. Sunrise Baptist Church, that's on Lakeshore Drive. Southern Hills, Burcoons. Broadmoor Presbyterian Church, Grover Place. A.B. Palmer Community Center, 79th Street. And Vivian Methodist Church. When we talk about these locations, and you're talking about, I would say, a super pole or a pole where a lot of people are going to, these are none of those. And to say that what we did impacted the voter turnout, I don't see it at these locations. When you look at your polling locations and you look and see which one people actually go vote in, if we had kept it at AC Steer, they had 41.7% people show up, but it wasn't there. And in that one, Nicholson won 172 to 28. So that wasn't impacted by that. I was at Willow-Shoot, and I saw people of all races come through Willow-Shoot to get those boxes. It wasn't just all minorities, it was all people of all colors that came through there. And I can say that in other locations, there were people of all colors that came through there. So we have had a history of doing food distributions. People in Caddo Parish respond to those. They come out, they get the boxes, they appreciate that. And to say that, well, by we did that, we tainted the election, I don't see that. If we had kept them at the polling locations, I still don't see that we would have tainted the election. There was no campaigning done at those spots, so that, it wasn't a way to say, okay, when you get through getting this, go over there and vote. We didn't do nothing like that. It was basically come, get the food, thank you for being a citizen. We are concerned about you for Thanksgiving. That's what I was telling people at Willow-Shoot. That was not, I didn't tell nobody to go vote for anybody. I didn't tell anybody to go vote, period. It was basically, we have the food here, come and get it. And like I said, people of all colors showed up to get that. There's a need. If we had another one tomorrow, same cars or more will be in line to get those boxes. I mean, we've been blessed, all of us sitting up on this horseshoe have been blessed to have disposable income and to be able to go shopping whenever we want to be able to go get the things we need and get the things we want and the things that we don't even really need, but we get them anyway. And there's a lot of people in this city that don't have that same kind of blessing and opportunity. So when they do have an opportunity like that, they're going to actually do it. Now, when you look at overall voting, it still was low. We didn't hit 40%. We ain't hit 30%. So, I mean, to say that it was tainted by us giving away food, no. If that voting percentage was up to 50%, I would say, yeah, we did something. But when it's in the 30%, no, we didn't affect it no kind of way whatsoever, because that's still low. And to say, well, we never do that again on election day. If they pick a date, I wouldn't say that y'all would say, no, we can't give them the food out, because we make the same adjustments. If there's a polling location that you normally have it at, and now it's election time, move it from the polling location, but still give the food out. We've done this many times, so I would disagree with anybody who says that this affected the voter turnout, because it didn't. And you got to remember, you got 2 weeks early voting, and you have the day of election voting. So how can this, at least 2 hours from 9 o'clock to about 11:30 and from 10 o'clock to 12, impact voting that much? I don't see it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll piggyback on what Commissioner Johnson just said, and I've heard some others talk about it. And my question is, why is the food distribution being singled out? Is Travis still here? Because to me, I'm hearing people saying, well, the food distribution tainted the election. But if my understanding, wasn't there an event at the animal shelter on November 18th? Did y'all have a pet adoption day?
I think we did an off-site event at Hollywood Feed.
Okay, so there was a pet adoption event that
Yes.
day as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I wanted. There was a pet adoption day going on that day. I'm looking here on Keel's website, tree giveaway, discounted tree event. Come pick up on November 18th. Why these events are not being singled out? Why the food distribution? That is the misinformation that I think, and the disinformation that President Burrell is talking about. Nobody is saying that the tree giveaway or the tree discount, because you gave it at you sold it at a discount. Nobody's attacking that. And the tree pickup was where? Mall St. Vincent. And guess what Mall St. Vincent is? A polling location. But it's not being attacked. Why the food distribution? In fact, there are 3 precincts, I believe, at Mall St. Vincent. So what I don't want us to do, and I don't want the public to do, is to try to demonize the poor, demonize folks who are in need. That is not what we should do. If we're going to have prohibition against events on election day, we have to have a prohibition on all events, if that's the case. But I cannot sit here and let us single out one event and not single out the others. Because the reality is, everybody, somebody, whatever your interest was, that's where you went. But I have not heard a single entity that has made these allegations, or a single person that have made these allegations. I have not heard them call out the pet adoption event. I have not heard them call out the tree distribution event. Not one time. But the food distribution tainted the election. And for those who don't believe that this is some type of dog whistle, either a dog whistle to the poor or it's a dog whistle for race. One or the other. It could be both. Don't know. Just saying. Let's not do that. Again, the Food Bank of Northwest Louisiana was not intentionally trying to do anything. What we got was the food will be available at this time. I have the staff to be able to do it at this time. Can we go? And I think it was not until the week of that we realized this is election day. It was not until the week of that we realized that's election day. And administration started trying to make all type of plans to move these events so that they would not interfere with election day. But I hadn't heard 103.7 or 97.7 the heat. I hadn't heard them go out and accuse the tree giveaway of making the race so close. Hadn't heard that. Hadn't heard Dominique Ben go out and accuse the pet adoption event of pushing people out. I just don't think that we should be about doing that as a community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Epperson?
Yes. The overall turnout in the sheriff's race for October the 14th was 30.5%. For November the 18th, it was 28.7%, 1.8% lower. Also, the 3 precincts at Mall St. Vincent, Nicholson at precinct 37 got 89, Henry Whitehorn got 37, Nicholson at 32 got 17, Henry Whitehorn 79, Nicholson at precinct 98, 64, Whitehorn 18. That's all I have.
Okay. As a final note, I just wanted to say too that for urban commissioners, very little is we get an opportunity to do things for people in our districts. I've complained about that probably 20-some years when I first ran for commission, probably back in 1994, somewhere thereabout, because most of the money is spent outside the city. This is one of the few things that we spend money on as urban commissioners, people who live inside the city, and it's just not exclusive for those that live inside the city. We feed people. We feed people who don't have. I had Hispanic people and others coming up in baby buggies and bringing their just to carry it back because they didn't have transportation. You know, I think it's an indictment on people who don't have a heart to try to, how would you say, not vilify, but to talk disparagingly toward people who don't have in light of an election. The election, in my opinion, that was won fair and square twice. Now we're in court. Like I said, we're getting ready to open up a Pandora box that we don't want. So stay tuned. With that, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, that would bring us to old business, where we have no scheduled old business today. So we'll move forward to new business, where you have a number of items. The first being advancing the introduction of ordinance number 6402 of 2023. That is an ordinance implementing an ad valorem tax exemption for first responders and otherwise provide with respect thereto. I did distribute a printout that contains what is likely to be offered as an amendment to this item.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Jackson, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to make a substitute motion to advance, but also place this in the long-range planning committee meeting at this particular time.
Okay, it's been a substitute motion?
Correct. And then I'll do the amendment afterwards, or should I do the amendment
Correct.
first?
Substitute
And then?
motion by Commissioner Jackson and seconded by Commissioner Jones, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me retract that. I'd like to introduce the amended version first, and then I'll make my substitute motion. So I'm sorry about that.
Introduced to, okay.
To amend this first. I need to amend it first.
Okay, so your motion is to amend.
Commissioner Jackson, I believe I'm following your intent here, and I think with one motion you could move to amend and advance the amended version to the long-range planning and the regular session. Is that what you're for introduction?
That'll work. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, it's been a motion and second from Commissioner Jackson and seconded by Commissioner Jones.
And I can
Commissioner
explain
Johnson.
Well, I'll explain my amendment.
Oh.
Yes, I want to explain the amendment. The amendment is if you look at the sheet that was passed out, 1, 2, 3, 4, in the now therefore be it ordained, instead of doing the 2,500, which is basically the maximum amount that was approved in the constitutional amendment, talk with the administration as it relates to budgetary issues. All I really wanted to do was to make it to where it is right now the existing homestead exemption is $75,000, and so I'd like to just make it to where it's an even $80,000, and so that $500 homestead exemption would put that right at the $80,000 mark, and so that's why you see the amended version there. The $2,500 would put it at a $100,000 exemption, and I think the budget numbers came back at about $200,000, Erica. It would cost the parish about $200,000 a year for that exemption. My thing is, I think what you will probably have is at some point later on, you're probably going to have, school teachers and public employees being added at a certain point. And so I'd rather be modest right now, but I do want to show our appreciation to our men and women in law enforcement. And the other exemption is to make sure that we clarify that this is for active first responders and they would have had to do a minimum of 3 years in order to be eligible for the additional exemption. So, but this would hopefully give the administration and the new tax assessor time. Is next year a reassessment year, I believe?
It is.
So we give them time in a reassessment year to get the processes and things in place so they can go ahead and start doing that. Thank you Thank you, Mr. President.
Point of clarification, is this in conjunction with the constitutional
Amendment,
amendment
yes.
that just passed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I think one of my questions was possibly answered. I wanted to make sure that administration had enough time to kind of identify how much this would actually cost the parish. And then second of all, if the homestead exemption is $75,000 and you're saying additional $500, that's $7,500, $75,500 instead of $80,000.
Right, no, so, there is only 10% of the assessed value, so when you look at 2,500, it's actually 25. You take 10% of that, it's 2,500. So in this case, it would be 5,000. You take 10% of that, is 500. So you only really pay taxes on 10% of the assessed value.
Right.
So if you have a $300,000 home, you pay it on 30,000. So that's why it's the 500. But it's 500, 5,000 is the same thing.
Well, I just want to make sure that layman's terms, I mean, you understand it,
Yes.
we understand it, but
Yes.
the people that's
Yes, sir.
that's out there that just say, okay, do I get 75,500 or do I get 80,000?
Right. Yes,
so
sir.
I think we need to put that in there some kind of way that 5-10 years down the road, there's no question of, well, what they talking about, 75,500 or $80,000.
Okay, yes, sir. And just for clarification, when that amendment passed on November 18th, it did say the local governing authorities would make the decision as to whether or not you would have that homestead exemption additional for the first responders. So that's why it's coming before you all, which is maybe different from other amendments where it was automatic. In this case, it's not automatic. The governing authority would have to vote on it. And it would be for all taxing bodies, not just ours. It would impact all taxing.
That was my next question. Would the school board have to do the same thing and the sheriff department and all that?
Yes.
Or do we have to, when we do it, it covers everybody?
If this body passes it, it will cover then every office.
Okay, and have y'all had the opportunity to actually figure out how much roundabout? I know I heard 200,000, but
That's where we just did a real quick estimate based on just looking at the number of police, the number of fire, the number of sheriff deputies. Now, all of them may not own their property.
what about the EMTs with the ambulance
Right,
services?
so, yeah, we just did we looked at the employment numbers, looking at City of Shreveport records, looking at the Sheriff's Office records, and did a quick analysis. That number may be on the high side, and maybe it's just dependent on the number of folks that own their property. Also, you do have to actually live in the parish, so you can't work for Caddo Parish but live in Bossier Parish and get the exemption. So, and the tax assessor also has to verify through the employee. The employer would have to provide information to show that this employee qualifies for the exemption.
All right, and you did include the constables, city marshals, all those as well.
Caddo.
In our initial,
And your Caddo fire districts.
in our initial numbers, we did not include that, but we did gross up for those that were not having considered, because yes, it would be all the fire district, could be the constables, others. The way we read the law, we would have to just look to see if those that are obvious, do they qualify as a first responder?
All right, so with somebody who carries a badge, we say that they were a first responder? Because there are other people who carry badges.
Right.
Okay, well, can we put that definition in here as well?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
so we
I just want to
can-
make sure, because, you know, if somebody has a badge and they figure, okay, I'm supposed to get this as well. Okay, and they consider themselves a first responder. So, I just want to make sure.
Well, yeah, we can gather that language if that's what you
I would
want
like to
say.
have it included as well, because the more you have in here, the less you got gray areas and.
Well, you know, it was just recently passed, so it's still a learning process for all of us.
It says
Okay.
first responder. I just wanted to add a clarification real quick.
Okay.
In the amended version, it says qualified first responders. So if you look at the amended version, this is for first responders. And I also wanted to clarify something that Ms. Bryant said. If you also look in the third whereas, it says Caddo first responders as well, so it reemphasizes. I also wanted to clarify that she pointed out that it can only be, you can't work in Bossier and live in Caddo, but also vice versa. You can't work in another parish and live here. You have to work and claim your homestead exemption here. So it's both ways, vice versa. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
So, I had a question to that. So, if a person is a deputy in DeSoto Parish, but they stay in Caddo Parish, and we pass this, you saying that deputy cannot?
The Constitution Amendment says, and the statute that passed it says that they have to reside and work.
So, I think we need to reference the Louisiana statute in this as well.
That's fine. We can do that. I don't have a problem with that.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins?
Let me muddy the water up
That's what it's
some more.
supposed to say.
Act 179 says first responder, I'm gonna get to it. First responder shall mean a full-time public employee whose duties include responding rapidly to an emergency who resides in the same parish in which their employer is located. Public Works needs to be considered. I mean, seriously, we've got all these storms and different events that happen. These guys are first responders for that. Mr. Ward, can I ask a question, please? Dr. Ward. No, okay, Dr. Ward. I'm not much on titles if nobody hadn't figured it out.
Plain white shirt on.
Doesn't our Public Works Department, don't they get certification in incident response, incident management? Okay.
Yes, we have quite a few.
So we have they get certified in doing that.
Right, FEMA offers classes where.
So that is a certification for first responders.
I mean, I'm not
So
debating
I'd like
that.
us to.
But
I'd like
if
us
you do
to
that, you do have to
consider it.
consider the city of Shreveport's Public Works Department also. And so this number could then get to a number that's not just.
Okay.
So I think the fact that you're asking for a committee meeting gives
Yeah.
us the time
Well,
to
that's
be
why I
able
wanna
to
look
look
at
at
that.
that and see how many folks we actually could be looking at.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ward.
Okay, that's the last question. Mr. Clerk, would you restate?
Yeah, the motion is a motion from Commissioner Jackson to amend and advance the ordinance 6402 for introduction and consideration by the Long Range Committee.
Okay, you've heard the motion. You have a motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Jones. We can vote.
All right, and that motion carries with 10 in support, 1 in opposition, and 1 out of the chamber. That brings us to the next item, which is 11.2, considering advancing Resolution 64 of 2023. That is a resolution to authorize the Caddo Parish Administrator to request and authorize the Louisiana State Mineral and Energy Board and the Office of Mineral Resources to accept nominations and advertise for oil, gas, and mineral leases, accept bids, and award and execute oil, gas, and mineral leases on certain mineral interests owned by the Parish of Caddo and otherwise providing with respect thereto. This item is in District 7.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Jackson.
No, sir. Just hide on the button.
My globe on?
Hands just hide on the button.
Okay, well, are we good? Because I want to make sure that you get your comments.
If it's okay with the author of Resolution 65, Resolution 67, Mr. Harold Sater, Mr. David Highland, and Global and Advance, all of those.
Would you like to also include the recommendations of the Alcohol Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
That as well.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, repeat those again.
So essentially, Commissioner Jackson's motion is to advance the remainder of the items in your new business, which would include Resolution 64 of 2023, Resolution 65 of 2023, Resolution 67 of 2023, a special resolution honoring Harold Sater, a special resolution honoring David Highland, and the recommendations of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Committee.
Okay.
Commissioner Atkins asked about Pool 67, so I'm fine with
You
doing
might want to
67.
discuss that.
That's fine.
Can we pull the special resolution on Harold Slater too? Out of that in global?
I'll pull the one up for Mr. Harold Sater out.
Okay, if no
Except
objection.
those two. Thank you.
Repeat
Okay,
that. Mr.
so the
Clerk.
motion is now to englobe and advance the Resolution 64, Resolution 65, and a special resolution honoring David Highland and the recommendations of the Alcoholic Beverage Committee.
Okay, Commissioner Gage Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like someone from Public Works to come up to explain what this resolution is authorizing.
The oil and gas ones? But the first one for District 7 is to authorize Louisiana Board to actually offer the mineral rights up. That's something that we do all the time for those. And the second one is in District 12, and it's reassignment of the existing lease that's there. They're just changing hands from one oil company to another oil company. Things we do all the time.
Thank you. I just wanted that for public record.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Chavez.
I'll just go on the record to say I think it's petty that we're pulling the resolution honoring Harold Sater because the person that asked for it knows that I'm against Resolution 67, President.
I think he'll be fine.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
Well, Mr. President, the Harold Slater, if I can remember right, he came down here and chastised the commission at one particular time, and in so doing so, how am I going to give a man a special resolution that came down here and tried to chastise us? So that's the reason why I pulled it at, because I was going to vote no on that particular one. And I'm still going to vote no on that because, I mean, I can understand a person comes down to have a complaint, but the way that he did it back when he did it, no, I felt that if he came before us for some other kind of deal, it was going to be no vote. And so, therefore, that's why my no vote is. It's not because you pulled 67. You can vote against 67. I don't really care. But when you vote against 67, you're not voting against me. You're voting against people that stay in a particular area. It's not asking for any money. It's only asking for support because what they can use that resolution for is for private money. Now, you saying no to that, and then you want to say no to an ordinance, then you're going to have this whole chamber in 2024 full of people from the Cooper Road down here, and all we're asking today is a resolution of support. It's not going to cost the parish a dime, but that's fine. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Jones.
Call for the question.
Second. Okay, the question has been called by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Johnson. Okay, we can vote?
Yeah,
Right
Yeah,
now,
vote
we're
on
going
call
to
for the
call for a
question.
question, right?
That's what I've been called for the question, not his.
Advance resolution
Yeah.
number 64.
But it's got the wrong advance.
Yeah, can you add another item?
Clarification?
We can do a roll call for the question, and if you can do that way.
Okay, let's do that while we work on this technical glitch real quick. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Call for the question.
For call for the question, Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young, Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Blake,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries with all in support being 11 in support and 1 out of the chamber. And so we would advance now to the substitute motion,
Which is?
and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wait. I want to make sure Michelle's, it looks like she's been able to reset it, and I think it is correct now, right? Okay, so this is going to be an englobo and advance for resolutions number 64 and 65, as well as a special resolution honoring David Hyland and the recommendations of the Alcoholic Beverage Committee.
Okay, we can vote.
Okay, that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent. That brings us then to consideration of advancing Resolution 67 of 2023. The item is on your agenda by title, and a hard copy has been distributed with the full body of that resolution.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I know this is Commissioner Johnson's deal. My hand's just hot over here on the button today, but I will just say thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for doing this. I did have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Ronnie Bryant and get clarification on what he was actually asking for from the body. I will say that some of the communication that I received initially after the last meeting, and I won't call names at least right now, but I was very disappointed in some communication that I got, and it's not from anybody on this board, but when individuals ask for clarity, when we're talking about investing in something, we have a fiduciary responsibility, just like we just did up here today on the ordinance. I didn't chastise anybody who asked a question about an ordinance or some information. I don't chastise people about that, and because I believe that everybody should make an informed decisions up here. And some of the feedback or just some of the stuff that I got after the last vote, I was very disappointed in. But I do want to thank Mr. Bryant for taking his time to sit down, talk, make some stuff make sense for me, provide some clarity to some stuff. And all he's asking the parish to do is to enter into a non-binding resolution of support for this project. That's all they're asking for. That's all he ever was asking for. And so I appreciate him. I appreciate Commissioner Johnson for bringing this back to us in the form in which it has been requested. And, you know, there may be an opportunity where the commission may have to put some money behind this particular project. But at this time, he's asking for us to support the concept and idea of what they're trying to do as they go out and try to put this together. So that's what I feel like this is all about, is if somebody asks us for something, you just simply just give them the information that they're asking for so that they can make informed and accurate decisions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have respect for my colleague, Commissioner Johnson. I'll vote to advance this in the form of a resolution to show our support for them to continue to evaluate the project. I'm not yet, I want to make it clear, I'm not yet supporting committing dollars to this project. Before I'd be willing to do that, I'd need to see a lot more with respect to projections and plans and economics. But to allow them to continue to evaluate the project and develop it and perhaps gain some additional support for it, I will support it at this level. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. What's on the table today is only about support. Before the Economic Development Committee goes in, everyone would have to sign the NDA because there are some confidential stuff that I haven't brought up yet and they haven't brought up yet. I know you asked for a lot of information, but that information cannot be done until we do an NDA. So we took a step back and say, okay, let's see, we get a resolution of support from the commission. That will help them to go and seek additional private funding. And then in 2024, you know, it might come back around to ask for some dollars for economic development. But for today purposes, is this only to talk about support from the parish to continue this project to go. There's a lot of different moving pieces in this. It's not just a grocery store. It's addressing more than just that. It's looking at long-term operability. And so we just want to make sure that if he can get all of the governing bodies on board on support, then when he starts talking to some of these private companies, they can say, okay, well, at least you got the government agencies behind you to do this. And then that would put less burden on the parish, the school board, and the city as far as public dollars. So this is the only reason why I put it back on today. Just want to try to keep this ball moving because it took so long even just to get to this point. And you know, in a particular food desert, if it was a high volume area, high income area, this wouldn't even be on the agenda because those private donations would already be out there, and that company would start building a store and building stuff there. So the traffic is there, but the problem is the disposable income, and that's where that issue comes in at, and then drawing that market into that particular area. So this is, like I said, only for support. There's no money being asked today. There's no money tied to this today. It is for support. That's all I have.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. This is the second time this has come before this body. The first, well, the second of this nature. The first one was actually remanded back to committee because, as Commissioner Jackson stated, people on this board, they do want due diligence, and I appreciate him saying that. The same thing that Commissioner Atkins said. We sent that to committee because we wanted to research it. Just the body of this says, whereas the city of Shreveport has commissioned a study to eliminate a food desert in the Martin Luther King area of Shreveport, and whereas the study has been completed and it has been determined that the community would be best served with the development of a multi-tenant commercial center with a grocery facility being the anchor tenant. I asked to see that study. I have yet to see that. I wanted to see within the committee meeting that we can gather this information. When there's asked of no money, and this resolution of support, 67 of 23, goes right to say that they're supporting this proposed project. And if you scroll to the bottom of the proposed project, it says, request. We are asking the Caddo Parish Commission to offer a resolution supporting this concept with the understanding that we will follow up later with an additional detailed project information and data and a request for $2 million in capital support. So when there's mention of no money needed or no money asked, it's $2 million. And of the projects that it states that are going to put on here, it shows things like regional chain grocery store, which that's good. But then the rest of these things, a Goodwill training center, a fitness center, an executive suite, a professional office space, a McDonald's, a Subway, a D&B office, an urgent care facility, a Susla office, and a full-service restaurant. I don't want to go down the list and pick these apart, but McDonald's alone, we can pick any Northwest Louisiana location, and McDonald's, their core business is not serving hamburgers, it's real estate. Every single McDonald's in this local area owns the land underneath. They don't do leases, but if they do, they're long-term leases. So if we have a long-term lease already secured with McDonald's, do we have an LOI? Have we seen that data? Do we see what they're going to pay? Has the state submitted an LOI for that D&B office? Why are we asking for $2 million from the parish when we know the state, if this is going to be a D&B office, can pay for that? Same with Susla. Same with an urgent care facility. Same with professional office space, the Goodwill Training Center. None of these other locations have shown LOIs. If we were doing our due diligence and we had our meeting like I wanted to, like we sent this to committee, like we voted on, which it has not gone to committee, it's still sitting on the agenda to sit in my committee that we have yet not to have, because we had a second resolution pull up in front of us to speed this process along, and nobody on this body has got to see any of this data. I don't think that's good stewards of the taxpayer money. So I'm going to be voting no, not even to advance this, just for no today. And just for clarification, it wasn't Harold Sayer that came down here that, as you said, chastised. It was Mr. Lorick. Thank you, President.
I'm good with names.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, I always support economic development projects, and I've been real big about that. And I'm going to vote to move this forward. But I too would like to see, what exactly is going to be involved. Is it going to be infrastructure and roads, utilities, things like that? And then what type of payback are we looking at for that cost? So I'd just like to see those things if I'm still here when we even do this. So, but I will go ahead and we'll vote to move it forward.
Let me ask a point of clarification on this, because we did remand this back to the committee. This will not circumvent that. You still will have the opportunity to do that as well.
It goes back to Economic Development Committee, which I am the chair of, and not
Okay.
long range.
That's what this is saying?
I'm on the board, I get to that.
Okay, well, yeah, try to explain it to me, because I'm a little confused about that.
All right.
Okay,
I'm next.
oh, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So this did go to Economic Development Committee first time around, and it did pass out of Economic Development Committee by a passing vote. We brought it back to the full body sent it back to Economic Development. And so basically all this is, again, is a resolution of support. If it was asking for money, it would be an ordinance. And everybody up here should know that. If it's asking for money, it's gonna be an ordinance. If it's a resolution, it's basically for support, urging, things like that. That's all we're asking for today, is for support. Now, in 2024, once you do the NDAs, that's the non-disclosure agreements, you'll get all that information. But you're not gonna get all that information now because it's too confidential. Based upon the developers talking to me, he said it's too confidential. So all the stuff that you want to see and have, you're not gonna be able to get that now. You're gonna get it with the NDA once you sign it. So the support is, and you got an overview and a template of what's proposed to be there. That could change. But for today, they wanted to make sure they had enough information in front of you, not to say to kill or support, but to say, okay, at least we know what we're gonna be looking for or looking at in the future. And that's what that's about. We've done this many times in the past. This is nothing new. So all these excuses of this or that and whatever, you can say that for tomorrow or next year or whatever. I'm here to say basically I need y'all support so they can actually go out and start looking at private dollars to help offset. They might come back and say we don't need $2 million from the parish. If they got letters of support from everybody, they might come back and say, well, we just need $500,000. Or it might not need nothing. We got some investors that's willing to step up and pay for it all. But they need the letters of support initially. Otherwise, there's no private money. It's all gonna be looking at public dollars coming down here for the city, the parish, the state, and federal dollars. So if you do the letter of support, it doesn't cost you a penny. All it is saying that we support it and that it's been identified as a food desert. Y'all want to pick that apart and say, well, it don't meet the criteria in my opinion, but it does. So that's been eliminated. And all the other stuff that you talked about, McDonald's, and you already talked about restaurants and they don't serve subpar food, but if we had a whole bunch of restaurant owners in here, you wouldn't dare say that. But you said it then to try to kill the project. This is something that's needed in this area. If it was something in Southern Hills area, I wouldn't be sitting here trying to pick it apart and say, no, it might be something that you need. And it's only a letter of support. Why would I fight against it, a letter of support? When we start talking about dollars and cents, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail, but a letter of support is not going to hurt you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Gage, Watts.
Thank you. Call for the question.
Second.
Okay, the question has been called.
I can withdraw my question from the board, and then we don't have anybody on the board, if that's helpful.
Would that suffice?
Somebody else might pop up.
Move the agenda?
Okay.
Okay, well, there's no one to speak, so we go back to the original motion, I guess, on the resolution, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, so am I understanding that the motion for the call for question was withdrawn and we're
Right.
just moving forward?
So
to
we're
the
ready to
right?
vote. Let's vote.
There we go.
Just for clarity, Mr. President, we are voting on.
We're voting on the
Advancing
resolution.
Resolution
Of support.
67.
Yeah.
To
I
the
can't
agenda.
slide the ordinance in today.
I said resolution.
We have the resolution, 67.
I am too. You got a game?
All right, and that motion does advance with 8 in support, 3 in opposition, and 1 absent. That brings us to the next item on your agenda, which is to consider advancing a special resolution honoring Harold Sater.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Jackson?
Pretty quick on the draw today. I'd like to be added to the resolution for Mr. Sater, the fine gentleman, Southern Hills Business
Yes, sir.
Association, and just add me if you can, Jeff.
Okay,
Even though he doesn't live in
Commissioner
Southern Hills,
Jones.
right?
Business Association.
I don't think he lives in Southern Hills. He owns a business in Southern Hills.
Man, he serves Southern Hills, but yeah, you're right, he don't even live there.
Okay. Commissioner Jones.
Yes, I'd like to be added as well. If that's okay with all.
Okay. All right, we can vote.
President Commissioner Blake would like to be added.
Yes, I'd like to be added too.
Okay. All right, we can vote.
Okay, and that motion carries with 8 in support, 2 in opposition, and 2 absent. That brings us to communiques and committee reports.
Okay, any Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention the My Community Cares presents Finding Hope When Things Look Helpless. That it's a parent cafe this Thursday, December 7th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at A.B. Palmer Center, 547 East 79th Street. And the purpose of this is to help parents who are struggling in many areas, whether it be child care and not necessarily funding, but to help assist them and show them where they can go to get these resources that they need. Mental health for single parents who are struggling with having the children all the time, never getting a break for themselves. And so this gives them an opportunity to come and sit with other parents, and they kind of have a powwow and vent session where they can all just kind of let everything out and meet other people and network with folks who are in the same situation that they're in. So there is free food provided. It's only 15 participants. So if you're interested in signing up, please make sure that you RSVP with Cretia.Bennett@byjla.org. And I did share this information on my social media as well. And I just want all of us to be more aware. You know, people are really having a hard time just with life right now. I love to cook, but I started eating out more when I found out it was the same price as buying groceries. I thought I was saving money when I was buying groceries, and actually buying groceries may be more expensive than going out to eat. Doesn't make it more healthier, which is what I need to be working on. But my point is, it does not kill us to be kind. It does not hurt us to be cautious of how we treat one another. We can disagree on a lot of things, but we just don't know what someone's dealing with that day. And sometimes we need to take a step back and just be kind to our fellow man and try to do what we can to make sure that whatever happens throughout the day, that we're not the reason that somebody got pushed over the edge because we're just so dug in on our political views or whatever the case may be. You know, some things just aren't political. Some things are just simply moral. And it does not, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. It has nothing to do with kindness. It doesn't have anything to do with treating your neighbor right. So, you know, as we go into this season where a lot of people, many of us may be excited about the holidays and stuff coming up, think about the folks who don't have family, have lost parents this year, Some people have lost children this year. You know, we just got to start being more aware of that type of thing and be a better example of it as our young people are watching how we treat one another as adults. It shows them how they should treat one another. And so let's just kind of start keeping stuff like that in mind or whatnot, and let's not let our tensions get so high with one another that we forget that everybody's human, and you know, we all have our ways, but at the end of the day, we've been called to love one another as ourselves. Okay, so just want to drop that little word of inspiration into our hearts today, and I hope everybody has a good evening. I'm gonna go feed my dog.
All right, Pastor, that was a good word, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Not?
I'll second what Commissioner Jones said.
All right, we got a second. All right.
We don't need to take a vote on that, do we?
No, amen would do.
Yeah.
Okay, then, that, Mr. Clerk?
There's no request for citizens' comments, late arrivals,
Move to
so that
adjourn.
brings us to consent.
All right. Have a good evening.
I haven't written anything. I don't own.
Because you called me Thanksgiving. Line to call me. Don't have him go through you.
I just forwarded stuff to you. You know, if you don't want anything, you're an elected official, but you don't need to call me out. I did nothing to you at all. Other
John, look, I was just partly being facetious, but since you want to make it an issue.
You called me out in front of a group. I haven't written anything. I